had a boyfriend. And I was in love. Oh, in love. This was my first love, okay? He was tall, he was intelligent and ambitious. And for me, this was it. This was going to be the one, the only one for me. I was 17, and he was 19. So let us just call him Boy Child. So, Boy Child and Amanda in love. Love is going well. And 5 years down the line, and we know how we think. We tend to think if you spend so many years with somebody, that love is meant to be. I mean, think about it. For some reason, we seem to put so much value and weight on the number of years a couple has spent together. So now, automatically, 5 years in, this love is meant to be. This is a forever love. There's no going back. All right. Then, on the 5th year, boy pops. Not the question. The bubble. The bubble that I had been living in. Thinking this is it. Okay? But boy was like, this is a lot. I am done. I do not want to be part of this. But if I can be honest, it kind of was over way before this moment. But because I was so in love with the idea of being in a forever relationship, I didn't want to see it. This was my moment. This is it. Well, when Boy Child decided that this was it, this crushed me. Big time. And sent me into various emotions and pain that was so physically hard, I thought it was going to kill me, for sure. But I also knew it wouldn't, because this pain was a little bit too familiar. I had been here before, 14 years prior to this. So let's go back to 14 years before this. This is me, 8 years old. It's a perfect day. It's my birthday, and I'm a Leo, so I'm all about this. But it's also a very important day. I'm receiving my first Holy Communion. Do we have some Catholics in this room? We can raise our hands, it's safe. So this was a big deal for me as a budding Catholic girl. And also it was very important for my mother. And for this was her moment to shine. I'm her first daughter, and she's a staunch Catholic. And my mother, her name is Dahlia. She's as colorful as the flower itself. She is a woman who blossoms wherever she is. And she's very resourceful, and at the same time with the strength of 1,000-man army. So this was not going to be a small event for her. So she spent a whole week delegating, putting things together, arranging the house, and buying, if you ask me, 1,001 flowers to put in her house to be ready for this amazing day, because it was her day to shine. But it was the first time she's actually entertaining in this new house. You see, we had just moved, like a couple months, we had just moved to this new house. So she was very happy to host. On that day, honestly, if I look back, I was looking pretty amazing, if you ask me. My daddy had gotten me this beautiful purple and white dress. I mean, it had layers and laces, so absolutely looking fabulous. The day went so well. It was fun, full of family and friends and good food. And if you ever had the chance to taste Burundian food, my friend, the best. So as the evening progressed and the day went well, we had a visitor. My father decided to come. Okay, he had not been at the event, so he showed up at the event at our new house. You see, we had to do that because a few months prior to this day, my mother had packed my sisters and I and moved across the road to just down the road to where my father was now living, and the house I used to call home. His arrival, unfortunately, came with a bit of commotion and altercation with my mother, and it wasn't the first time, because he had been verbally and physically abusive to my mom for as long as I could remember, honestly. So this was nothing new. But this time it was heavy, and the altercation caused a bit of a commotion to the point the whole neighborhood came to a standstill. I couldn't believe on that day of all days, that is very important to me, that in a home that finally felt so safe, that this whole commotion that is so normal is now back into this house. I felt like this time the abuse was towards me. I felt aggrieved in that moment. This was already a shift for my mother having to leave our home and to go into another home. Then let's meet Amanda, who's a teen. Amanda, who's a teen, early teen, mother goes into a new relationship, very confusing for her. She's wondering, who is this new person? All of a sudden, I realized I was holding on hope that my father was going to come back, because this new relationship meant that the doors have been shut, the train has left. Your father is not coming back. And that was a shift for both of us, because it now was, I wasn't really, the new man tried to charm my sisters and I, but it didn't happen. The wind was just, charm did not work. And that was a hard moment, but we pursued on. After this, as a family, we decided it's what she needs, and we're going to be part of it. So now what happens to the 22-year-old who's now going through a breakup in the hands of boy child? She felt crushed, and she felt a pain, and that pain, unfortunately, led to depression. But since this pain was so familiar, for the first time, I decided, let me investigate. There's no way this pain can be normal. Let's find out. What is the root of this pain? What can I do? And under that pain, I realized there was a lot of grief and a lot of rejection and loss that I was carrying. I was just a girl bleeding inside and outside on everybody. I could now understand why I was just holding on to this relationship that had ended for so many years before this moment, before he crashed or he decided, oh, I'm over it. But with making so many excuses for this person and just clinging to them so desperately, like maybe like a political candidate who just wants a direct ticket to nomination. But here we are. So I did the work. Thanks to therapy, I got tools to help me to figure out my triggers so that I don't bleed on other people. But it's not always in therapy. I have to thank Jesus, my good girlfriends, and some wine, because that came in very handy. Going through that process, I was able to realize and pinpoint the wounds that the 8-year-old me was carrying, the teen me that was carrying, that I didn't even know were there until that moment, in that crushing moment. So now, you'd wonder, what is my relationship with my parents? It's a one in progress, because that moment was the biggest shift for me, learning all these things about myself. And it allowed me to see my parents as just humans. Humans who did their best, who tried and did their best and did with what they have. Now I can meet them at the table, have complicated conversations, and be okay with that. And at the same time, just accept that they're flawed, like the way I am. I'm also flawed, and I'm okay with that. And I'm still going through the shift, because the shift doesn't end. And at the same time, I can comfortably sit at the table with my 8-year-old self, my teen me, my 22-year-old me, meet them at the table with the tools that I now have, with where I am, and help them heal so that I can be a better person to the people that I get to interact with every day. All the pieces of the puzzles are now in place. I'm complete because I'm the person I want to spend the rest of my life with.